When you need someone to go through your layers fridge to find the expiration date, you hire the part-time henchman. I am Jeremy.
I'm Joanna.
And I'm Jesse.
Casey couldn't make it due to the holiday, but we're going to sit here and go through some of the latest news and our story of the week. But before we get to that, how are you guys doing?
Doing pretty well.
Yeah? What happened? What's new?
I got a job interview tomorrow.
Oh, sweet.
Awesome.
It's not exactly the same field that I wanted to go into, but it might hold me over till I can find something.
Well, you know, cannabis shops can be fun.
Oh no, I'm actually allergic, so that would be horrible.
Oh, wow. You're like
Yeah.
that 1 in a million individual.
Yeah. I like breathing, and I generally don't like rashes on my neck, so, you know.
So no trips to Detroit for you.
None, absolutely.
Jesse, how are you doing?
I've had a miserable week.
Oh?
So, remember that flake of a coworker I've been talking about?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
He quit.
Oh, okay. So that's got to be a positive overall.
No, it's just he quit. At least he called
Okay.
instead of doing the no-show. So in the meantime, we had to fill up his shift until my boss can hire someone else.
Ah, I see.
I haven't had a day off since the Sunday before.
You know what's scary, Joanna? This is probably like the 5th time he's told me this particular story.
Yeah.
Not about this individual, just that many people show up, get the job for about 3 weeks, and decide, yeah, and just that's it. He's back on 24-hour shifts.
Oh, and the best part is through half of that week,
Mhm.
I was sick.
Oh, okay.
Aw.
Yeah.
Well, joy.
Ache everywhere, headache, could not eat anything. Not that it came back up. I just wasn't. My stomach said no.
Okay, well, I'm sorry to hear that, but on the bright side, welcome to the highlight of your week.
True.
Actually, the highlight of my week actually happened before all that happened.
Oh, see, he has to come back and just punch me in the nads verbally. Okay, what is it?
Oh yeah. So
Contradict him.
when you decide to, ask me what I want to propose for future reading,
Mhm.
I had time to think about it.
Okay.
I have a trunk here from early 2000 that I had stuff in there, including comics from the 90s.
Okay.
I was kind of thinking, like, what do I want to share with you guys? So I opened the trunk finally, and I find a crap ton of amazing things. And I realized, oh my god,
All
I
right.
was,
Just say it.
I was a lemming back in the 90s. I followed whatever big thing that happened.
So you have Image Comics, I'm assuming, if we're going to put 90s in the words 90s in comics together.
Oh no! No, not comics, anime.
Oh.
I have a bunch of Gundam figures in that trunk,
Oh, okay.
including one that hasn't been opened.
Ooh. Okay, well, that's eBay worthy.
Yeah, it is.
Despite the fact it's been in that trunk for all this time, it looks like it's been in the sun for 20 years.
Huh. Wonder how you manage that.
I don't know. The clear plastic's it's all stained, but the rest of it's just fine.
Okay. Well, my world has gotten a little bit wider over the past 72 hours.
Well, what did you do?
I wrestled.
For real?
For real, I got in the ring and wrestled. I was part of a tag team main event at SAC Anime Summer 2018 for Supreme Pro Wrestling and Cosplay Pro Wrestling, Cosplay and Body Slams Blackout. Which I did.
That was that last
and
weekend.
I did not black out, to my credit.
Well, good. That's always good news.
I did get hit in the face a couple of times, and what I found out is, hey, I don't have a glass jaw.
Well, good. I don't know if that's the best way to find out.
I didn't say it was ideal, but, you got to find out sooner or later.
True.
But everybody tells me it went well. I've seen a couple rough videos, and it looks okay. I actually had a couple people walk up to me and say, dude, I forgot you've never done this before. That looked like a real wrestling match. And it's like, yeah, that's kind of what I was going for. Thanks. But it was really cool. I got a lot of last minute advice from a number of people, and I'm crap with names. I really am. There was a few people who showed some last-minute stuff, including Patrick Fitzpatrick, my eventual partner. He showed me how to do a couple things at the very end that really helped.
Cool.
So, and the most terrifying thing, though, was afterwards, they indicated that there's a plan for this to go forward. And I'm like, what? So, yeah, we've got a plan for a couple more shows. So, you want me to keep doing this until I'm 42? Do I look like Hulk Hogan? So, I don't know. There may be more of this in my future, which is interesting yet terrifying, which is about how I started this feeling anyway. So,
Well, that's life, though. Interesting yet terrifying. That's
Yeah.
a good summary.
it's also something that I can say that, generally 95% of the people I know have not done, will never do, and there I am.
There you go.
So, is what it is. The subject of this week is Image Comics Volume 1 of Rat Queens. We'll get to that after the news of this week, and first up, we'll do Marvel comic news. We'll talk about the characters and intellectual properties owned by the House of Mouse and what's coming up for them. First off, it appears that Thanos may not stay dead.
Oh, man.
What a shocker.
Yeah, really. Who knew? Comic books, whatever. The writer of the last Thanos series, Donny Cates, is returning with a miniseries called Thanos Legacy. And it appears to start out with a number of characters looking for the digital equivalent of Thanos' will.
Huh.
It appears he's left some kind of instructions on how to do something that could potentially burn down the universe. And I don't care if you're familiar with the comic books or the movie versions. If Thanos has the intentions to burn down the universe, that's exactly what he means to do.
Yep.
The characters that are known to be looking for it in a preview of the first issue of Thanos Legacy are the cosmic Ghost Rider from an alternative future, which is the Punisher, with the powers of a Ghost Rider, cosmically imbued, carrying the chains made out of the bones of a legendary demon. I know
Scary.
I know that sounds complicated, but it is what it is. Do you know which demon those chains are made out of?
Ooh.
I
Sidorak.
do not.
Sidorak.
They're made out of the bones of
Oh.
Sidorak, who's supposed to be an immortal chaos demon. Yet, apparently, where he's from, Frank Castle killed him and made chains out of his unbreakable bones.
Guess
Well-
he's not immortal.
Yeah,
You know, if Ghost Rider wasn't metal before, this is probably the most metal he's ever been.
seriously.
Yeah.
But the other character who apparently found the will in what was left of Thanos' burned body was his half-brother Eros. Actually, no, he's not a half-brother, he's his full brother. Eros is known to Avengers fans as Star Fox.
Yeah. Oh, so. Interesting.
They are blood relations, and to me, Star Fox has always been one of the creepiest Avengers ever with his pheromone powers.
Yeah.
You know, he's he's one of those things that should not exist in the Me Too movement.
Yeah, like the creepy pedo vibes.
Well, it's not like pedo vibes. He's more like that creepy dude that wears a turtleneck and chain, and he's dropping pills into a lady's drinks at the back of the bar.
Yeah.
That's
yeah.
what he is to
Similar
me.
creepy vibes.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, there's a good reason for Star Fox to be involved in this story, but yeah, he always just kind of struck me as very odd.
Yeah, never liked him.
Also, when it comes to revivals, Donny Cates and artist Jeff Shaw are supposed to be bringing back the Guardians of the Galaxy series. The Guardians of the Galaxy, as we've discussed before, have broken down just before the Infinity Wars event, and it probably won't help that Gamora has impaled Star-Lord on her sword. You know, that tends to strain a relationship.
Yeah, it usually puts a damper on it.
Yeah, all I have about this new series is a one-page, or I should say a double-page ad spread with the hashtag on it, "Who are the Guardians?" What makes this a little more tricky, though, is that this image has a number of characters who have either been Guardians or are Guardians related, and unfortunately, it doesn't tell us who in this picture is the roster. I'm guessing that that's going to be one of the keys to buying the issue, is finding out who's on this team. But in addition to known Guardians, you also have characters like the Starjammers, the Shi'ar Imperial Guard. It even has Galactus and the Cosmic Ghost Rider in this image.
Interesting.
So-
There's a Nova, Beta Ray Bill.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Yeah, there is a number of characters to choose from on this image, and
Is that Ronan back there?
sorry,
Is that Ronan in the back?
Yeah, Ronan the Accuser was part of a six-man squad that came out while the Guardians were offline. I think they were called the Eliminators.
Mm-hmm.
They were supposed to be 6 heavy hitters to deal with heavy-hitting threats. It included Guardian, the current Magistrix of the Shi'ar Empire. I want to say it involved one of the Space Knights where Rom came from, and a few other, all cosmic power characters. But I couldn't say for sure who's going to be involved in it. I recognize a ton of characters in here, but it would take a while to go over all this, including the original Guardians from the 1970s. Oh, look, there's Howard the Duck next to
Yeah,
Adam
I
Warlock.
saw that.
Yeah.
Is that Abomination in the back right here?
No. I can't remember his name. He's the big green scaly thing from the Starjammers.
Ah,
Don't remember his name, I'm sorry. I'm surprised to see the Super Skrull in this image.
yeah, I saw that too. Is that Summer's the Summer Father?
Oh, well, yeah, Corsair is the leader of the Starjammers.
Okay, yeah, okay. Wow, it's been a while.
Obviously! You're asking questions I didn't expect. Not trying to start an argument, it's just like, wow, I thought you knew all this. In addition to everything else going on, the first issue of Asgardians to the Galaxy, the Asgardians who are now tackling cosmic threats while the Guardians are not an official crew. The first issue of that book is actually on sale this Wednesday. That would make it September 5th? No, 4th. September 4th. And one of the biggest mysteries of their roster was that somebody was piloting damaged destroyer armor. For those that don't know, in case anybody else here doesn't know, Jesse.
I know what a destroyer is.
Yeah, the destroyer armor is an Asgardian weapon that was made as the ultimate offensive-defensive weapon for Asgard. It's been known to kill gods into the wrong hands.
Yep.
It's not usually inhabited, it's usually piloted by remote. But it has some kind of molten material as its power source, and it flows throughout the armor. What we've seen so far is that this particular destroyer armor is missing an arm already by the time the Asgardians of the Galaxy start. By the end of the issue, what you're going to discover is that the armor's being piloted by a Loki.
Ruh-oh.
Really?
Yeah.
Eight?
It's not... This is where it gets weird, though, because the current Loki, as we know, was reborn as a result of the last Ragnarok, and he was aged up to something that looks a lot like Tom Hiddleston from the movies.
Mm-hmm.
The thing is, though, the pilot of the destroyer armor is the kid Loki that was from the Rebirth era, like post-Siege.
Huh.
So I don't know why he's back, but apparently he's made some kind of promise that if Angela can help him save the galaxy, she will get something she demanded in return.
Neat.
So this is creating a little bit of a cosmic question. I don't know if this is a time travel thing. I don't know if it's an alternative dimensional character thing. I don't know if it's something else that could happen in the realm of comic books.
Huh.
But for right now, the current universe has at least 2 Lokis in it.
That's not good.
Well, that does sound like a recipe for disaster, especially since the young canny one is the one that's currently piloting the Destroyer.
Yeah, the most powerful weapon in the 9 realms, basically.
It probably very well is now that Mjolnir's been destroyed.
Yeah.
When it comes to the upcoming storylines, the Infinity Warps, where several characters are mashed together to create new creations in the middle of the Infinity Wars. A couple of them have been pushed back. Arachnite #1, the mashup of Spider-Man and Moon Knight, has been pushed back a little bit. It was originally supposed to come out... #1 was supposed to come out October 3rd. It looks like it's going to come out on October 24th. Also pushed back was the second issue of Soldier Supreme, the mashup between Captain America and Doctor Strange. That's been pushed back from October 10th also to October 24th. Soldier Supreme #1, though, has not been delayed. It's still scheduled to come out September 19th.
So are they moving it back to put more things forward, or is it just a delay?
I'm going to assume since both of these issues that were supposed to be released on different weeks have now been pushed back to the same date of October 24th, that it's a storyline editorial problem.
Mm-hmm.
If they brought out these issues too early, it may spoil something else going on in the Infinity Wars event, is my guess.
That's fair.
There wasn't any real reason given for this change, so it doesn't sound like it's a major problem. It's just a matter of making sure their timelines don't overlap.
Mm-hmm.
And now that I've seen a full color image of Arachnite, I don't know how I feel about that. That's a lot of red and white.
Mm.
Huh.
You haven't seen a full color image of that character yet, I assume.
No.
No, not yet.
Well, thankfully the story had the cover to Arachnite #1 in it, so I sent that for you guys to view. It almost doesn't look like it's Spider-Man and Moon Knight. It almost looks like Scarlet Spider and Moon Knight in this design.
I'll be honest, I think this costume lacks imagination.
I think it's fine, really. It actually has a lot of aspects of neither character in it. Neither one was big on the pouch movement. The long shorts over the red boots, I'm not quite sure what to think of that. I assume those are long shorts. If not, they're billowing pants. Extermination #2. That's the story that's supposed to deal with the young X-Men and possibly their return back to the original timeline. Supposedly, issue #2 has helped solve that, according to CBR.com. I've read the issue. I don't think it solves a damn thing, really. Because right now they think that young Iceman may be dead. They don't know that he's been captured by Cable, or young Cable anyway. Iceman was positing that the kid must be alive because otherwise he would vanish like Cyclops did when young Cyclops was dead for a few minutes in their universe. Beast posits that may not be the case because time paradoxes are difficult to unravel. He said, quote, "If the timeline has sufficiently been altered by the children being here, then it's possible that what happens to them will have no impact on their present-day counterparts," unquote. That sounds way too fuzzy. I mean, Doctor Who does a better job of explaining time paradoxes better than that.
Yeah.
It doesn't sound very logical that just because they've been here long enough, that time will be okay with the change.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, no.
And I say that as a big fan of X-Men. I love their stories, but that explanation was just like weak. No.
That's just lazy writing.
Yeah, you gotta do better than that. So hopefully there's a better reason to all this going forward, but thankfully they don't really have to deal with it since young Iceman isn't dead, he's just missing.
Mm-hmm.
A long-time X-Men writer since about 2014 has had to say goodbye to the franchise. Cullen Bunn has moved from X-Men Project to X-Men Project, including Magneto, Uncanny X-Men, Civil War II X-Men, X-Men Blue, and a ton of single issues. He is now moving on. He has no involvement at all in the X-Men's world in Marvel. He's even leaving the Deadpool franchise after his Deadpool Assassin miniseries.
Really?
Yep. He said on Twitter, quote, "Thanks to the X-fans for the support. It's meant a lot. I'm going to miss these mutants," unquote.
Mm.
He hasn't been fired, though. He's the one that's currently writing as Guardians of the Galaxy.
Okay, that's fair.
Yeah. Also, I did flip through the preview of As Guardians of the Galaxy. It appears it's even going to be a spiritual successor to his prior series, Fearless Defenders.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, the Valkyrie and a couple of her friends played a big part in Fearless Defenders, and she does appear to be the leader, or at least one of the co-leaders of the As Guardians of the Galaxy.
I'm a fan.
Yeah,
I'll probably pick it up.
I did not know that. I didn't read the end of Fearless Defenders. I didn't know that Valkyrie is sharing space with that human archaeologist.
Yeah, it was kind of one of those bring her back from the dead, but they didn't specify how.
Mm-hmm.
And so they were just put into the same body. She's not schizophrenic. She's actually got
She's two entities,
in
yeah.
her head. Yeah.
I just wasn't clear on that. I remember if I'm right, the archaeologist was injured. I didn't know how they healed her. I'm assuming that this was some kind of sacrifice on Brunhilde's part because the two of them were in love for a short amount of time, I think.
Right. Mm-hmm.
But obviously it's hard to carry on a relationship when the two of them can't be in the same place at the same time. It's all very Lady Hawk.
Yeah, it's also how is their relationship influence and their friendship influence by not being able to separate, and like they're literally in the same brain space.
Yeah.
That would probably cause a lot of problems.
I think the most awkward part would be, since they've decided to move on in such a fashion, what happens when one gets romantic? It does seem they're both very aware of what goes on while they're not in the physical plane.
That's addressed, and Valkyrie does her thing, and then the archaeologist, I can't remember her name, Oh,
I think it's
is there,
Gabrielle.
I guess, yeah, when she wakes up, she's like, "Whoa, whoa, wait a second, what the heck is going on?" And the Valkyrie's like, "I'll take it over from here." And she's like, "No, no, 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 no. This is my body too. We have a choice. We need to talk about this." There's this little scene, and it's really great.
Wouldn't that be
So
terrible though if that poor woman just wakes up and just goes, "Why do I smell of mead and shame?"
you'll hear a little whistling in the back of the head. Well, you said I could have the night out, so
Three unconscious cage fighters in the corner.
basically.
Uh, well, two new designs have been revealed for the upcoming Shatterstar miniseries. Still don't have much of a story as to what's going on here. It's written by Tim Seeley. It's going to be illustrated by Carlos Villa and Gerardo Sandoval. The first issue goes on sale October 3rd. And there's actually an image out from Tim Seeley as to the design of the title character, which actually mashes together a few different costume aspects from his creation all the way through to X Factor, really. From what I've sent, he's back to using the handheld double-bladed swords. They're not attached to his wrists anymore. He's using the thigh guards and boots that he had in X Factor. His upper torso, he's using a single shoulder pauldron like he did at his debut, but it's not the gigantic shoulder pad he had. Looks like they've updated his what do you call it? That padded headdress as well into a single armored cowl type thing. But they've managed to put all that together in a pretty discernible way, and it's nowhere near as bulky or as unbelievable as it was when he came out.
Yeah, that's not bad.
Yeah, they even added like this weird tattered poncho thing so that I don't know, it gives it a sense of flow, I'm guessing, when he moves. At least he doesn't have that pirate ponytail anymore.
Yeah, seriously.
I know in the 90s it was kind of the thing, but wow, that got old just about the time
Yeah,
the character was introduced.
very dated.
Yeah. But Shatterstar's not the only one who's gotten an updated design as a result of this series. His former paramour, Richter, the seismic mutant, he's also getting a new design. And it doesn't quite go back to his origin like Shatterstar's did. It has to do a lot with his second and third outfits, really. During that period, he was very punk rock or grunge rock. In this case, they've done the same thing, but they slimmed it down. He doesn't have the big 80s hair anymore. He has a green vest with leather-studded shoulder areas. He is wearing another black sleeveless shirt with a red circle and X through it. It's what he was
Okay.
wearing back in his first X-Force outfit. The rest is pretty normal pants and like folded leather boots. I think it's good work here. I really do. They brought both characters in the modern era without actually ignoring what came before.
Cool.
And the latest issue of X-23 by Mariko Tamaki and Juan Cabal has answered a question that's been bothering me since they debuted this series, as to why when you have a character that has so much growth as Laura Kinney, do you make her go back to X-23, which is probably the most milquetoast name ever been associated with this character.
Yeah.
And their explanation was that X-23, she knows who she is as a clone, and she has gone back to that name because she wants to stop anybody who's involved with the original process that created her to know who exactly came for them and stop them. They don't want or she doesn't want any question as to who did it, which is why she readopted the name, which I get the reasoning, still doesn't feel like a good reason to me.
Yeah, it feels a little weak.
Yeah. She's become so much since she was introduced as X-23. She was practically mute when she was brought into the comic books.
Mm-hmm.
And to step back to X-23, that's what I think about, was that time where she was practically monosyllabic. She threatened just about everybody who was trying to help her, and she's just no longer that woman.
Yeah, she's not the feral cat anymore.
No. No, she's not. I think she's more dangerous than Logan.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Did you read her first run in X-Force?
No.
It was when they were all wearing the black and gray outfit. Wolfsbane and Warpath were part of the team. Wolverine was leading it, and X-23 was on it. They met up with the leader of the Purifiers, and I think he had a gun on Wolfsbane. He was threatening to kill her. X-23 was the only one who was keeping him from jumping on helicopter because of her presence. He turns his back, and obviously he's going to get claws in the spine. And he looks at X-23, who's just standing there watching him, and he says, "You're different from Wolverine. You know how to kill people. I bet you've thought of at least 3 different ways to kill me already." And she just shakes her head and says, "No, 11."
Yeah. Nice.
And that's when I really became a fan of the character, because that was terrifying to me.
Yeah.
And that's always been one of the biggest differences between Laura and Logan, is that Logan is very much a reactive, almost wild animal when he gets into a fight. It's all about clawing it until it stops moving. With X-23, it's always been one strike, it's dead, I move on. One strike, it's dead, I move on.
Kind of a John Wick approach.
Mm-hmm.
She's been way more calculated. Yeah.
She's also been way more trained.
Quiet calculation. Right. Laura over Logan is the more calculating, silent type, whereas Logan will slash first, ask questions later.
Mm-hmm.
She's the one that will actually be still and observe. And I find that makes her way more lethal than he is, because he doesn't take time to plan things out, and she's more effective with her kill tactics than he is.
Yeah. I think it's inevitable at this point that sooner or later Laura has to become a leader of some kind of X-Men team or squad. She seems to have the mind for it, and she definitely has... prestige is the wrong word. She has everyone's respect at this point.
Right.
They know that she's not just, as you put it, the feral cat that was put on their doorstep so many years ago. She's become a dangerous force, and, Gabby is so much more of an effective Robin than any of the Dick Graysons or Tim Drakes have ever been, because she actually managed to make Laura more of a person.
Right.
Which is kind of an interesting development in and of itself. I do recommend X-23 as far as reading, though. I may not be a fan of the name, but it is still solid character progression.
Cool.
Last up, when it comes to Marvel comic news, unfortunately a major creator from Marvel has passed away. Her name was Maurice Severin. She died at the age of 89. She was a longtime artist and colorist in Marvel Comics. I'm kind of surprised I hadn't heard of her name before. She's even inducted into the Will Eisner Hall of Fame back in 2001. Unfortunately, her passing was due to a recent stroke.
Oh.
Yeah. Severin broke into comic books in the late 1940s when her older brother, John Severin, asked her to color one of his stories for EC Comics, and she did such a good job that she was soon the regular colorist. And I want you to think about that she was a colorist in comic books in the 40s.
40s, wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Women were barely allowed out of the house in the 40s.
Right. Not to mention coloring for was it Marvel at that time?
It was EC Comics.
Okay.
The EC Comics line went out of business following the institution of the Comics Code Authority, which apparently was a group of creators who were trying to put together a code of conduct for comics, but a group behind the Comics Code did not like EC in particular for some reason. But after that, Severin got more work for Atlas Comics, and then she left comics entirely and worked at the Federal Reserve. Then in the late 50s, she got back into comics, again, still not an era where women were thought of as workers, and she did production. Then Atlas turned into Marvel and began to expand. And when the Hulk got his own series, The Incredible Hulk, Severin was the penciler for the first 5 issues. She was the actual central artist for the beginning of The Incredible Hulk. And believe it or not, she helped co-create one of their creations that had a cult following, I'd say, at about 6-7 years ago.
Amazing, especially for the time.
Yeah, I agree. But believe it or not, she actually helped design one of their more recognizable characters. Back in 1976, she designed the costume and is listed as the co-creator of Spider-Woman.
Oh, cool. Okay.
Back in the 80s, she began working in special projects for Marvel, doing a lot of license work. So, obvious, she wasn't doing comic books, but she was doing the products that, the characters' faces ended up on. She was eventually let go by Marvel during their restructuring after their late 1990s bankruptcy when Marvel was in dire straits. She actually retired from comics in the mid-2000s.
Wow. That's a great career, though.
The lady had a long history. I'm embarrassed that I've never actually known her name before. Not saying I'm the end-all be-all of comics authorities, but a lady that did that much work in that many different aspects of comics, I should have known her name.
True. I mean, I feel the same way. Not saying, yeah, you should have.
No, it's exactly what you're saying, If it's going to be a patriarchal society, I might as well know something. God damn it.
Right? I will get my soapbox out again.
There we go. Be careful, Jesse. When she gets that soapbox, she doesn't stand on it and talk. She just beats people to death with it.
There might be yelling of sorts.
That stain at the bottom isn't tomato paste, but we'll move on. Going into DC Comics news, we're going to talk about the other major company and their characters and intellectual properties coming out now and in the near future. Scott Snyder has apparently planned the return of a DC icon in the pages of Justice League.
Ooh.
Therein was the interesting part. He was at Comic-Con and he was talking to CBR International. And when I say Comic-Con, I mean San Diego Comic-Con, which may soon be the only Comic-Con that can be called Comic-Con, as we know. When he was talking to CBR, he said, quote, "Batman was amazing and it was the ride of my life. Metal was insane." On that, we agree. "But now I have a good long run where I have a 2-year plan on Justice League up to about issue 45 or 50, where it all breaks loose and goes crazy. But having all these pieces, from Adam Strange to Firestorm to Hawkgirl and Swamp Thing, and Starman comes into it too. All this crazy stuff comes in. We find the Martian keeper of secrets," unquote. Now, I know neither of you are big DC readers, so I wouldn't be surprised if you know which one of those names hasn't been around in quite a while. But, sorry?
Is it Starman?
It is Starman. We have not had a Starman, as far as I know, since Stargirl became a regular character in the Justice Society of America back in, I want to say, the 80s. No, well, probably the 90s. But when he said, "and Will Starman," there has been a Starman named Will Payton. He was the spacefaring Starman from the 1980s. Apparently, the CBR interviewer heard the same words we did. He pressed a little bit more to find out if this was Will Payton, Starman, that's supposed to be introduced. And Snyder continued, quote, "I don't want to give away too much because there are plans for different versions of Starman in different places. The JSA stuff is going to be going on with Ted Knight in some ways, and I don't want to give too much away. I will say that in Justice League number 7, you'll start to see a story to begin to unfold, and he becomes a player along with Starro again. Starro, they find a piece of him in a jar, and they always insult him by calling him Jarro," unquote.
Wow.
Yeah, I'm not a fan of the pun. I mean, the return of Starro is not necessarily a big story. I think we discussed in our when we reviewed No Justice that he's a starfish. As long as there's a piece of him, even ripped in half, he'll be fine eventually.
Right.
When it comes to Starman, though, yeah, it's been a long time since we've seen any of them, and now there may be a couple of them returning at around the same time. I don't know how to feel about that. I've never actually read any DC comics that involved Starman. I've read after his period.
Yeah.
So
I don't know any either.
I just say make it compelling. That's all I want. I only have one other story in DC comic news. That has to do with Jeff Johns, who is one of the creative directors at DC Comics. He is also the one writing the new Shazam comic with artist Dale Eaglesham. And Johns has been responsible for the revitalization of a couple of characters in DC's history. He's the one who brought back Hal Jordan and did the Green Lantern Rebirth story. I believe he's also the one that did the Flash Rebirth that brought Barry Allen back and made them both major players in the comics at that point. Mm-hmm. Well, he apparently has even loftier goals for his run at Shazam. He said in a recent interview, quote, "We're taking the Golden Age Fawcett comics as the basis of it. Like all these characters over the years, like Daredevil and Batman and the Incredible Hulk. Peter David redefined the Incredible Hulk and changed it forever, and Frank Miller redefined Daredevil and Batman, and Mark Waid redefined Flash. I think Shazam hasn't really had that, great reintroduction. Between hopefully the book and the movie, we'll push this into the next level, but almost like Shazam skips over the grim and gritty phase of comic books. So we're looking at it as if Fawcett just kept evolving," unquote.
Okay.
I like that he's pretty much using Fawcett as a base. He's not just ignoring Shazam's history for the sake of convenience. You know, he's actually going to dig backwards and make it all mean something. The idea of continuing Fawcett comic storylines is also a good idea, except, you know, things in the 1940s don't translate as well as they did today. Like the reprints of Shazam comics that were recently ditched because of all the profiling that was
oh god,
and stereotyping that was in those comics.
Yeah.
So I'm sure he's not going to use everything. I'd just be interested to know which stories he's going to pull from. If I remember correctly, the first few issues of Shazam are going to be about him rebuilding the Marvel family, like Captain Marvel Jr. and Mary Marvel and all that.
Oh, okay.
I don't quite know how that's going to work because I imagine he has a new take on all of it. At least I hope so.
Yeah.
Last up is general comic and convention news. This is where we talk about comic books that are not Marvel or DC related, as well as conventions happening all around the world. I don't have any convention news. I do have a little bit of information on the first issue of Firefly. This is going to be a new series for Boom Studios. It's being done by writer Greg Pak, one of the guys who did a well-known run on, I believe it was The Incredible Hulk. I think he's also the man that did World War Hulk.
Okay.
The artist is Dan McDade. According to Boom Studios executive editor Jeannie Schaefer, quote, "There's a special kind of magic that makes the best Firefly stories. Something that Greg and Dan have perfectly captured in this new series. Fans will see new sides of Mal, Zoe, and the crew of Serenity as we explore not only what it means to fight a war, but also what it takes to survive one," unquote.
Interesting.
I assume when she said we're going to see new sides of all the characters, that doesn't mean we're going to see the insides of Wash again.
Ha ha. You know what? It's still too soon for that, mister.
Hey, I feel bad about it too, and I'm the one that did it. Let me see. According to a short synopsis, when a mission goes wrong, Mal finds that his past is caught up with him, and a new breed of Alliance terror, the Unificators, are hot on his tail. Whedon serves as a story consultant on the series.
Awesome.
Interesting.
You can also get a limited edition of the Firefly Big Damn Heroes box, which includes all 8 of the original unsigned Firefly #1 covers, a box set exclusive variant from Tula Lotay from Supreme Blue Rose, a Firefly Legacy Edition Book 1 with a box set exclusive variant cover from Raza, who did covers for Luke Cage, and a box set exclusive Firefly print from Dylan Todd, 50 of which will be signed by Joss Whedon at random.
Cool.
And I see a couple images of pages here, no dialogue set to them. Wash is in it, so apparently this is a prequel to the Serenity movie. So this will be more series. I'm guessing this is what would have happened if Whedon had continued telling the story.
Yeah.
Which, it was cut short too soon.
It really was, but Fox had no idea what they had when they had it.
No, they didn't. Man, great.
If I remember correctly, I read that Fox were the reasons, or Fox Studios' involvement was the reason why the series turned more comedic towards the latter half of the series. And they showed some of the episodes out of order, if I remember correctly.
No, some were just never aired.
Oh, okay.
And maybe out of order too. I don't know, but definitely 2 were never aired.
Well, I mean, it's pretty obvious to me that Fox didn't know what to do with it when it debuted at 8 p.m. on a Friday, which, at the point it debuted back in, 2002, that was death for series. That was back... Yeah, that was back during a period where it was just before, not the internet was wide, but before the internet became an all-encompassing entertainment force.
It's true, before downloading and streaming and all that crap.
Right. And even nerds had things to do at prime time on a Friday night.
Wait, 2002 you said?
Yeah.
Yeah, I was in high school.
Well, I mean, we even got together for D&D games on the weekend during that period. We made time for Firefly, but it was easy to see why people weren't stopping what they were doing at the beginning of their weekend to sit down and watch TV.
I would watch it if it's on TV. I mean,
yeah.
Anyway.
I didn't know it was a thing. I think I was at that time. I was at a time in my life where I didn't have cable.
Ah.
Yeah, I never had cable growing up, and I heard about Firefly in college. One of my roommates introduced me to it and was like, "You'll like this. What is it? Just watch it." Okay.
Yeah, I didn't hear about Firefly until I think 06 maybe.
Yeah, for those few people who are listening to this and may not have actually watched it, I know that Star Wars is basically a space western, but it leans heavily into space. Firefly is also a space western, but it leans more heavily into the western aspect of the phrase.
Yes.
And it is basically a small caravan of outlaws is a bit too strong of a word, just more or less outcasts who are trying to find their way in a universe that has both extremely advanced societies and very technologically downgraded societies.
Hmm.
And the actors played it to the hilt, and I think everybody behind it had a passion and loved to see it go forward. They just couldn't convince the right people to get behind them at the studios, as well as they couldn't convince enough people to watch it in the moment. Because when you hear this phrase, it's a space western, I'm sure a lot of people just turn up their nose and go, oh, God, another Star Wars ripoff.
No, that wasn't actually my response. Mm.
I said a
She
lot of
said
people.
it's
I didn't
more
say you
Western than
particularly.
spacey.
Yeah, I'm sure it's just one of those things that doesn't come off well on paper. You
Yeah,
know?
it doesn't. But then that's why she said, just sit down and watch it and let me know what you think after 5 episodes. Okay.
Yeah. Well, further on in general comic news, Jeff Lemire's decided to speak up on Comicsgate.
Okay.
Lemire is a longtime writer and artist. He's worked on a number of different series for different companies. And as we know, Comicsgate is more or less people pushing back against the idea of what they call forced diversity. They don't see the inclusion of women and people of different ethnicities behind the scenes in comics as a good thing. They think it somehow ruins it or lessens it, and I don't quite understand that. They also tend to label those of us that don't mind diversity as social justice warriors somehow.
They can. Can I swear on this podcast?
I try not to encourage it, but there's no hard and fast rule against it.
They can go fuck themselves.
Okay. Lemire has also won an Eisner Award, and he put up a big blog post this past Friday. And he said in it, quote, I had hoped more creators who, like me, have had the privilege to create comics free of this sort of abuse and scrutiny, because we are white and we are men, would have joined me in denouncing Comicsgate. I know many of you feel the way I do. I noticed that many popular and significant creators liked my tweet, and that's great, but it's not enough. If we can use our voices to stand up for the next generation of comics creators, editors, and the next wave of voices that will keep our medium alive and vital, then what's the point in having them? The time is now to stand up for female comic book creators. The time is now to stand up for transsexual comic book creators. The time is now to stand up for creators of color and of all sexual orientations, races, and religions. If we don't do that, we don't deserve to keep making comics ourselves, unquote.
Interesting.
All I can say is testify, brother.
Right?
You know, dude, that just lays it all bare, and it doesn't just put the onus on those of us who are in ethnic minorities or gender minorities or even sexual minorities to just stand up for ourselves. It is up to the people who already have power to also say it's okay to share it.
Right, yeah. And it seems like everyone involved with we don't like the diversity, and we don't like females writing and in, female-centric stories. It seems like mostly like they're white males.
It's not just white males for the most part. I find it to be generally older white males who are used to things being a certain way.
Yeah, of a certain age group.
Yeah.
Don't like change for reasons.
You know, it's a generational thing, and when I say that, I'm not saying it's a generational thing for people to dislike diversity in comics. It just always seems like somewhere within a generation, people start complaining that X or Y was ruined because because people
some stupid reason.
Because minorities get
because
into
it changed.
You know, it's like way back when. I'm sure people had arguments against women driving cars. You know, there were arguments against women having high-paying jobs. There are
voting.
Yeah, there are arguments against transgender people just being able to use a goddamn bathroom. It's always something that people have to poke at and say, things were much better before they let all these other people in here.
Yeah, well.
And yet the sky is still up there.
Yeah.
Right, exactly.
Yeah. Thanks, Obama.
Oh, wow, we're going there.
I couldn't help it. It was all in the same thread.
Okay. Next story.
Writer Kyle Higgins, from his run from Power Rangers Comics for Boom Studios. He recently finished his run with Power Rangers Shattered Grid #1. I have read it myself. He did decide to go back with comicbook.com because they asked him what he wished he could have done in his run that he didn't have time to do. And interestingly, he had a character in particular that he wished he had more time to write for. He said, quote, I would have loved to do more with Mystic Force and more with Jungle Fury. In particular, RJ. I think I've been on the record before talking about how much I really like that character, and unfortunately there just wasn't enough space to really do everything that I would have liked to do with him, unquote.
Hmm.
You know, it's one of the challenges of a print medium, and I think he elaborated on that himself further on in the interview, in that in the print medium, there's not as much of a budget that you have to work around, so you can draw all these fantastical things that would just never make it onto TV or movies.
Right.
But the problem no longer becomes budget, it becomes real estate, because you only have so much room within those 22 pages to tell your story.
True.
So it's unfortunate he didn't get to fully indulge, because I'm not a big Power Rangers fan, but the few I've read between 1 and 25, he was telling some pretty good grown-up stories with these characters.
Oh yeah. Yeah, and he got into their personal lives and kind of made the characters that we kind of all knew and loved, or at least knew of,
Mm-hmm.
it made them more real, because in the show growing up, they're kind of two-dimensional, some of them.
He fleshed them out, basically.
Yeah, it's like, ooh, character development. Wow, real struggles. Tell me more,
Something
Yeah.
that probably would have made the show a lot more interesting, at least to me.
Well, the TV show had its budget constraints, but it also had a real estate constraint in that you had 22 minutes to turn 5 or 6, possibly 7 characters, depending on which iteration of the Power Rangers you're talking about, into people.
Right. Well, they had different episodes that were centered around different characters, and that kind of helped balance.
Yeah, but again,
But-
22 minutes.
Right.
Yeah.
You know, that's barely enough to tell a decent cartoon, let alone a story that involves human beings.
True
Especially
story.
when you had to have the obligatory fight and giant mecha battle and victory pose, and which, that probably takes up either anywhere from half to a quarter of the runtime.
Right, but then they had to have the message of the week, like, hey, don't litter, or go volunteer, or hey, help this kid with his homework, don't be a bully. They actually had those messages too that were super crammed in there with all the action.
It was 2 decades of that crap.
Okay, easy, easy. I can hear your ulcer bubbling. Last up in general comic news, there is apparently a problem between an independent creator and an independent company. Micah Myers claims that he was removed from working for Alterna Comics, Alterna, due to an updated social media policy. Hey, at least it was just the one thing.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, we didn't lose 2 hours worth of recording.
Yeah, knock on wood there, stupid. Let's see. Last up, we have a creator who apparently has lost a job at an independent comics creator due to a social media post. He claims, anyway. The creator's name is Micah Myers, M-I-C-A-H, Myers. The comics company is Alterna Comics, A-L-T-E-R-N-A. Myers posted about the incident on his personal Facebook page after Alterna's new policy began to come under fire from creators and the general public. According to Myers, he said that the company's founder, Peter Simeti, told the writer of the unnamed book Myers was working on that the book could be canceled if Myers continued blocking a potential audience.
What?
In other words, well, I'll let Myers' statement speak for itself. He said, quote, "I need to get something off my chest. A few weeks back, I was forced off a book that was lettering for Alterna when Peter Simeti told the writer that I had to unblock Comicsgate members or the book may be in danger of cancellation. I did this quietly and without hesitation. I was not going to put the writers and the artist book in danger, and I wasn't going to let these people back into my Twitter. I blocked all the followers of a DNC and a few others because I didn't want that hate in my life. I have enough crap floating around my head to put me in a bad mood. I don't need anything else. Now in the last few days, a lot of things have been happening with Alterna, and I remain silent. Even when Peter was subtweeting about my story a few days ago and making me out to be the bad guy. So for my own mental health, I want to get this out there and move on. Also to help my mental health, I'm adding a few more blocks," unquote. Apparently, he was using something called blockchains, or bots, that are a function of Twitter and social media services. They allow users to block accounts en masse with minimal effort based on related followers or relevant hashtags or keywords. So apparently he was using that to block Comicsgate or Comicsgate-associated people. Alterna Comics founder and publisher Peter Simeti issued a response via Twitter, and he denounced Myers' allegation that he was removed for failure to adhere to the company's social media policy. I understand giving your audience a voice. I just don't understand why, if all this has happened, and I say if because right now we just have his word against his word, why the issue would be allowing people that just want to scream
Right.
nonsense at you.
I am honestly on Michael Myers' side. I don't need any more stress in my life.
Well,
I don't need to hear.
that's given the caveat that what Myers is saying is what's happening. Unfortunately, we don't have anything that proves either side of the story at this point. So I really don't know where to go with the dispute between Myers and Alterna. I would like to have an opinion, but just this he said thing doesn't work for me.
Right.
So in the end, I guess a wait and see approach is all I can really take. I'm hoping the truth will come out, but I don't know how anyone can provide the truth without documents. I'm sure would be company privileged. But I wish them both the luck. I hope they work it out. The subject of this week is Image Comics Rat Queens #1 or Volume 1. The particular trade paperback is known as Sass and Sorcery from 2014. The series is pretty much, I guess the best way to put it is 4 female characters in the most drunken D&D session you've ever had. The story is by creator Curtis J. Weeb. The art and covers were by Rock Upchurch. And before we get in this, I want to acknowledge that I know that Rock Upchurch was removed from the series after their second volume because he was involved in a domestic violence incident. I just want to put it out there that I'm very aware of what happened when he was removed. I didn't follow up on what happened afterwards. I didn't really start reading the series until well after he was off it. So I just don't want to make that part of the review itself. I want to acknowledge it's there. I just don't want to get into that. Fair enough?
All right.
Fair.
Okay. Now, this whole series revolves around 4 or 5 women, depending on the volume. And they're a lot like classic characters you would find in a lot of fantasy stories, except all 4 have varying levels of sass and potentially sociopathic behavior. You have Hannah, the elf, who is arguably their leader, definitely the dark horse of the crew. Dee, who is their cleric, whose parents worship a chaos octopus. Betty, from a race of what they call...
Squid.
Yes, thank you. Betty, a smidgen, which is what they call halflings in their universe, who is an interesting kleptomaniac as well as potentially needs a serious course of AA. And Violet...
Yeah, kind of reminds me of a cross between a hobbit and a kender.
Yes. And Violet, who is their dwarf, who shaves her beard and tends to use a lot of designer items, although she's probably the most aggressive in the crew.
Yes.
And
probably also the most stable of the crew.
well, she's the easiest one to predict. The others, Dee tends to be rather closed off. She doesn't like people very much, or at least doesn't know how to engage them. Hannah's the most subversive one. I wouldn't say she's the most violent, but she is definitely the one that will get them involved in the most stuff just because somebody looked at her the wrong way. And Betty
That's true.
Yeah, Betty just won't keep her hands off anything, and that means both property and people. The very first issue, when this series started out, the first page, it seemed so mundane, I didn't quite know what to think of it. And then right when when the city council is talking about what to do about some kind of serious problem that's ruining their town, is when someone is flung through a window in their office or in their chamber. And it turns out that was just the Rat Queens blowing off steam by starting a bar brawl.
Which apparently is a normal thing for them.
Yeah. The city council thinks that the local mercenaries are just plain ruining their otherwise idyllic little town. And there's 5 groups of mercenaries in towns that are all given pretty much crap jobs to at least keep them busy. The Rat Queens, the Peaches, who are 4 individuals who dress in this strange off-mauve yellow color, both men and women. The 4 Daves, all of whom are named Dave. The Brother Ponies, they all have they all have ponytails and semi-revealing clothing for a group of dudes. And then the Obsidian Darkness, who are 4 pale elves who all dress in black cloaks. Just the image of these 5 teams kind of set me up as to what to expect from this when you have the 4 destructive women, the 4 people who all dress in coordinating outfits, 4 guys named Dave, 4 guys who look like they would be at home at a brony convention, and 4 guys who look like the goths who are standing in the corner of your local high school.
Hey, I knew my local goth club, okay?
I knew them too, and they looked a lot
They were
like
nice
that. They looked like that.
Yep.
You do get the idea that certain members of the Peaches and the Rat Queens don't like each other for varying reasons. I love the dialogue throughout this book, man.
Oh, yeah.
His name Curtis Weeb knows how to make characters sound so unique compared to other things I've read before. And I can't believe that the Obsidian Darkness, the 4 elves, their job was to clean the latrines at a past barracks.
Yeah, I was surprised that they didn't complain about it.
Yeah, if there was a job to complain about.
Yeah, I don't know if that's a constant, if they're asked to do all these kinds of weird jobs, but their lone response was one member who said, "Indeed." Like, well, it's Tuesday.
Right.
And when the Obsidian Darkness arrives, they are executed by some kind of ninja-like assassin. And it wasn't just a simple stab to the heart or a quiet, dagger pull. I mean, the image was very violent when one member's head was cut into 3 pieces.
Yeah, it was sliced and diced.
Yeah, that's to put it mildly. It was also right after that when we had more extended dialogue with the Rat Queens and started to really discover their individual personalities. You start to discover that Hannah she is one of those people who loves to stir the pot. She always likes to try and find what's going on by making other people uncomfortable.
Yeah, I do like Hannah. She's awesome.
Well, I mean, I like them all, but I mean, in these images, I started to get to know Betty the fastest when she was supposed to provide provisions for the Rat Queen's trip to clear out orcs, and her bag was filled with nothing but candy and magic mushrooms.
Yeah, that was great planning.
I mean, I remember my first time reading this series, I thought, okay, these guys are just plain dysfunctional. I don't get why they're alive.
Or how.
Yeah. And Hannah, you start to get to know her a couple pages later when she uses a magic stone like a cell phone.
Yeah, I saw that. That was priceless.
That was great.
That was my eye roll moment. I was afraid that all we were going to get was a series where fantasy is somewhat modernized. I didn't realize what was coming in the next few pages and how strangely cynical and sarcastic this entire series is.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not used to all my characters being this glib. They send in poor little Betty, the smidgen, to check for traps. She crawls along the floor very carefully looking for everything. And she says, "Oh, lovely fair, I will return to you. I will come bearing gifts of mountain mushrooms and oils of body rubbing and... Oh, hello, random boots."
Yeah, the random boots were great.
And she gets up. "No traps. Random boots, though. Belong to this fella." And there's another black-clad assassin standing behind her. And she says without irony, not a very talkative, sort of a gloomy one.
Yep.
I mean, the discussion afterwards was almost like something you expect in an out-of-character D&D group. "What's going on over there, Mr. Head-to-toe black in the sweltering sun?" I was just thinking that. Did he do that whole appear out of nowhere thing, though? Couldn't do that in a breezy white gown. Classic assassin getup.
Yeah. That is classic.
And one of my favorite things to appear from my reread of this series is Violet's strange war cries.
Those are great. The writing on this was amazing.
Yeah, "To the slaughter, my rat queens." I couldn't tell when she said that. Did she mean to his slaughter, to their slaughter, to another slaughter I don't know about?
It was open to interpretation.
And I mean, the assassin throws daggers, they bounce off one of Hannah's force fields, and all she can say is, "Worst assassin ever."
Ever. Yeah.
Betty stabbing the guy in the back with 2 daggers and calling it a surprise spine tickler. And then when this guy's starting to get overrun, he starts to cast magic, and these black ribbons come out of the ground. They grab both Hannah and Dee. And all Dee says is, "Tentacles, of course."
Yeah, what is it with men and tentacles? It was great.
They finally stopped the guy, and he's suddenly turned into. Have you ever seen what happened to one of the kidnappers in Fargo with the wood chipper? It looked a lot like that.
Basically.
And even the four different reactions to them being sprayed with the gore. Dee looks horrified about her outfit. Violet's just trying to see. Betty is kind of blank, and Hannah's trying not to throw up.
Yeah.
It turns out he was matched by one of the orcs they were looking for. And the second issue was when this whole thing became much more extreme, and it occurred to me how very real the risks are in this series. I mean, there wasn't just the argument about what technique they were going to do to deal with this orc. It was when the orc grabbed Hannah by the wand arm and crushed it.
Yeah, that was like a oh shit moment where you're like, okay, didn't expect that one.
Truly.
Yes, stakes are real here.
Yes. Their little technique of dealing with it, the Betty Climber, that was artistic.
Yeah.
It was great.
You know, it ended with her flipping up with a little Betty climbing to the top of this thing and literally stabbing its eyes out.
Both of them.
Yeah.
With daggers.
Simultaneously. And when Dee was checking on Hannah and what was left of her arm, that was a piece of visual gore I was not prepared for.
Yeah.
You know, I have read this volume I don't know how many times, and every time I come across that panel of what's left of her arm dangling at the forearm from one tendon, like between the split bones, I'm still uncomfortable.
Yeah, and then she's like, I'm not looking. How bad is it? Well,
The exact phrase from Dee was, please stop dangling it around.
Yeah, that's great.
You know, then she heals it, and I just love Hannah's piece of dialogue after that. Dee, I'd seriously give up sex for healing spells.
Who is it that said, let's not get ahead of ourselves or something
Dee,
like that?
Yeah, Dee got her up on her feet. Yeah, let's not go crazy now.
Yeah, it was D.
And then while she's standing up, Hannah looks down at Betty, still has eyes on her daggers. I got these for you. Aw, Betty, you're the sweetest smidgen alive.
Right. I love their little family group. It's so weird and perfect, though.
It's functionally dysfunctional.
Exactly.
The Peaches didn't fare too well. The two male members of their squad were killed by the assassin, and the two ladies barely held it together to finish off the person who came after them.
It almost became just a sole survivor situation.
Yeah, the half-orc, Braga, nearly died right then and there, but the queens just kind of came across the battle zone on their way back to town. You know, they managed to heal Braga, who in later volumes actually becomes a fifth member of the Rat Queens.
Nice. I figured she'd fit in pretty well.
She did eventually. It turns out that the Rat Queens, half the Peaches, and the 4 Daves were the only survivors of the day.
Mm-hmm.
There's something hilarious about the concept of the 4 Daves. How do 4 guys named Dave just happen to meet each other and become mercenaries?
Maybe they're all mercenaries, just happened to be named Dave, and they came across each other. Oh, you're a mercenary named Dave? Hey, hang out with me.
There's part of me that wants to say that they have the same mother and their parents are just not that imaginative.
I don't think it's that.
I don't think it's that either. There's just that small part of me that thinks that would be funny.
It would be, but I think if they think it's just funny, like, hey, we're all named Dave. Shit, that makes the group name easy.
Yeah.
But they're different species, aren't they? And they're just all named Dave?
They are.
Oh, yeah.
They're different species and ethnicities.
Okay.
So there isn't much of a rhyme or reason to them other than Dave.
The Daves.
You know, they all drank to their survival, and I've actually never read the dirty song that they're singing while they're walking down the street as they left the bar.
I never read it.
And the old wizard fumbled in the gloom as he reached out for his trusty broom, but he was in for a vulgar shock when he firmly gripped on his horse's cock. Oh! Dear God.
What kind of tavern song are you up to?
I've never heard that one before. Wouldn't mind hearing like the damn pirate buccaneer sing that one, but whatever. I do feel kind of bad for old lady Bernadette, as they put it.
Oh,
She's only 39 and they call her old lady. It's great.
I know, she's just trying to run a store. She doesn't like these people, and as much as they're the heroes of the story, I understand why she doesn't like them.
Right.
You know,
But she's a little extreme in her hate.
I agree with that. You know, they do tend to wreck the tranquility of the town, but it's not like they actually wreck town.
Right, exactly.
And the next day, Betty apparently just fell asleep on the arm of a chair. She's small enough to do that. She looks like a cat.
Right.
She looks like a literal cat that woke up and said, "Oh, I can't believe I ate that mouse."
Right.
Violet, the dwarf, is working on food. She's working on breakfast, and as she puts it, fruit, cut into slices, and thus ends the list of my culinary repertoire.
Yeah.
And even the dialogue at the last panel there is very telling about how these women act. Hey, yeah, Hannah's the maker of breakfast. Where is she? I think she left early this morning. To kill the mayor? Probably. Apple slice?
Yeah.
So
All
casual.
Yeah. just another day in the life of the queens. Hannah tried to sneak into the mayor's office, magically disguised as the town sheriff. Did not go well because the town sheriff was already in the office discussing what to do about last night.
Right. And I figured something was up when he was awkwardly walking through the office. Like, those stairs are pretty safe, and you guys are doing great with your paperwork. It's just kind of awkwardly, hi, so, oh.
It is the biggest case of hiding not hiding I've ever seen.
Yeah.
Because she didn't really even try to attempt to look like or act like the town sheriff. She just acted like herself, dressed as the town sheriff.
Right, exactly.
And the oddly friendly relationship between the sheriff here and Hannah. It seems like it's not the first time he's locked her up, but they have a very casual conversation and reminisce a lot.
Yep.
The sexual tension is high. I did like that when he was leaving, he said, "For what it's worth, I'm glad you made it out alive. Without you, Palisade would be the happiest place on Earth. It's enough to make me want to kill myself."
What a chipper guy.
Yeah, that's kind of sweet. I didn't picture Betty as having relationships, let alone having relationship trouble. She didn't seem to be the tie it down type person to me.
Right. She seems a little flighty.
Yeah. But maybe it's just the fact that this girl that she likes, I don't think I ever caught her name, but
It's actually at the very beginning.
Oh, is it? Okay.
Yeah, what was it?
Maybe that was Freya or something.
Yeah, that's Freya.
Okay. But she doesn't like the people that Betty hangs around with, and she just thinks that a person's friends reflects the person, and I understand that. That tends to be true.
And they wreck the town on a regular, so their reputation kind of precedes them, to be fair.
You gotta admit, if you hang out with one, you're hanging out with all, and that doesn't seem like a generally safe prospect.
Right.
I mean, shoot, during target practice, Hannah well, I don't think she was trying to, but she just barely kept from blowing Dee's head off with a shot over it. So they keep talking about what to do, and they think that the mayor has to be involved since the mayor doled out the jobs that got half the mercenaries in town killed.
Mm-hmm.
And while they're trying to figure it out, I like how Hannah says, "Nah, we got this. I told Sawyer we handle this diplomatically." That's when Betty looks irritated and says, "I'm breaking into their building, aren't I? Like a tiger into a baby farm."
That was a great line.
Actually, you skipped the part where they actually stopped blaming the mayor and actually were blaming the Merchants Guild.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Yeah, that's where she's going. Yeah,
But
missed that part somehow.
That
was in their conversation.
Yeah.
Sawyer and Hannah.
Yeah, when Dee and Betty were sitting in the mayor's office and Betty was just casing the whole joint while they were talking, I was kind of impressed with how Weeb and Upchurch laid it out. It almost seemed like a TV show where you're just taking a look at what she sees through the room and slowly putting it together.
Mm-hmm.
But then she decided to end the conversation so they could leave by just jumping on his desk and yelling, "Those rates are unicorn due. If you want our business, you better lower them. Right now." But I didn't even give a number. Right now, mister!
Yeah. His reaction was great. He was like, "What on earth? I didn't even say."
Yeah. Did you see his face, Dee? Did you? Who's officially scarier than a squirrel now? Eat that, Hannah! Betty, you are by far the strangest smidgen I've ever met.
Can't believe there's a competition for being scarier than a squirrel.
Yeah.
Squirrels can be quite intimidating. I'll just have you know.
And the next couple pages are actually a lot of characterization for Violet as we meet her twin brother.
Mm-hmm.
And it turns out she's from a I guess you could say she's from a dwarven fencing guild and family.
Mm-hmm.
You know, she was never meant for the warrior's life. She was more or less meant for tournament life, at least according to her family. And
Oh,
what?
I'm trying to put, trying to bring a word that contextualizes in my head.
Well, she's just from a highfalutin dwarven family, and they want her to be a highfalutin girl. And it's just not what she wants. She wants to be able to pick her own life, and she happens to like the one she's picked with these women.
Yeah, I think it's interesting because I didn't really catch that she was a dwarf and right away until they said it. And I was like, okay, I thought, according to legend, dwarven women had beards. Gimli talks about it in Lord of the Rings.
So does she.
And then, right,
Yeah,
and then the conversation with the brother where he's like, "And where's your beard?" She's like, "I shaved it." Like,
Yeah.
duh.
Yeah, my first time reading, I didn't actually quite catch that connotation that she's supposed to be a dwarf.
They're all interesting characters, each in their own way. You know, and what was it? I want to skip a couple of the conversations here. When Betty was actually breaking into the mayor's office, I appreciate the cloak. Why the black face paint?
To be stealthy.
I guess, but still.
Okay, if someone like me, as pale as can be, was sneaking around the dark in a black cloak, you would only see my face.
Okay, I grant you that, but I will also...
To be more stealthy, you'd black out the face a bit.
Okay, I will grant you that, but it's not like she painted the entirety of her face. It's a couple swatches across. Also, she's also not the person that would be seen from most windows from the outside.
She's not a ninja. She doesn't know everything.
But the scene where she slowly opens the door, creeps across the office, looks at the painting, then just has this minor disgusted look as she realizes she has to go drag a chair so she can reach the painting.
That was great.
She finds the documents inside that shows that Bernadette's recently gotten a loan of gold for some reason. As she's walking back with the information, she looks into Bernadette's shop, and Bernadette's sitting there writing with an assassin creeping up behind her. Betty crashes through the window and says, "Nice try, Mr. Assassin. You leave old lady Bernadette alone. I'm 39 years old. Hey, no need to get snooty. I was just coming to apologize for smashing your window to pieces." Like she just did.
Right.
And that's when we find out Bernadette's been paying the assassins.
Dun, dun, dun.
Yeah. So chapter 4 here, Betty is getting her clock clean because as good as she is, she's only one person, but it just so happens that the town sheriff was in the area. You probably heard the window smashing.
He needs a hobby.
He does. He doesn't seem like he gets out a lot. But apparently...
That's not on patrol.
I think the most surprising part, though, was that the assassin knows him. So that indicates that Sawyer had a pretty dark history before he landed this job.
Which definitely piqued my interest.
Yeah. But, I mean, when this guy produces a sword and he starts... Or, what was it? When the assassin turns his double sword into two swords, and Sawyer blocks it once and then lops off both of his hands.
Yeah, that was unexpected.
That was impressive, but I was also kind of impressed with the assassin not losing his mind, just looking at the stumps and going, "Dicks!" Like, this
What was
isn't
all
the
he had
worst...
time to say?
I don't know, I was just kind of surprised that he acted like this is not the worst thing that's ever happened to me. Like, he was more put out than scared at that moment. So, whatever. But before they can do anything about Bernadette, a rock completely destroys her shop. I should say a boulder.
Boulder,
Yep.
I was going to say it's bigger.
Yeah. And they don't have time to deal with Bernadette. The other rat queens are already at the town walls, staring down at a lot of orcs.
And one troll.
Yeah, one gigantic troll. The entire page of issue 4 there, where the troll starts yelling at them, is, in my opinion, priceless. Just absolutely priceless.
Yeah.
You the fucking rat queens. Goddamn right we're the fucking rat queens. You cunts killed my boyfriend. We kill a lot of boyfriends. What makes you think we killed yours? He told me you bragged about it and drank to his slaughter. Dee looks at one sheepish guard and just says, "Nice one, Gary."
And I like that it's a recurring thing because it's like, damn it, Gary. Like in the next couple pages, I was like, I need to see more about this Gary person.
I would really enjoy a one-shot that's just called Rat Queens, Gary.
Yes.
Because you know, for them to know him that well, he has done some stuff in his lifetime.
Yep.
But surprisingly, the queens aren't the ones who just decide to jump around or jump down there and start taking care of it. Braga shows up in black armor, and she had one of the lines of the frickin' volume, in my opinion. Orcs only know one language: blood. I'm the fucking alphabet.
Yes.
That was great.
That was awesome.
It's like even Violet says it in the very next panel. Damn, that was a good line. You know, Braga picks up Betty and puts her in a small quiver on her back. Betty is her backup, literally.
Yeah. I think she says something like, "Watch my back," and she's like, oh, okay.
Yeah, it was more like, Braga, what are you doing? Leading the charge.
And then she jumps off the freaking wall.
Yeah.
Because she could do that.
Yeah. And Betty's in her back. During the fall, she yells, "Okay, wasn't expecting this." And as soon as they drop, Betty produces a bow, starts shooting. This is a tactical nightmare!
Yep.
But before she jumps, I just like Braga asking Violet for a war cry, and what she comes up with is, "Rat queens, put the sexy back in large wholesale slaughter."
That was
She
classic.
is trying way too hard with these.
Well, I mean, I forgot to mention it, but even when they were fighting the assassin, she took a couple wounds, and she wants to say something, and she just says, "I'm going to show him his blood loss hampering wit." Ugh.
I think her wit's not that great.
Well, to her, it's the best.
And even Braga has some kind of unknown history, because when she starts fighting, two of the trolls look at each other and say, "It's her, the bastard. We're fucked."
Well, because she's a half-blood. Yeah, they know of her.
She's not, actually.
She's not.
No,
I
I've
thought
read
she
a
was.
one-shot. She is actually a former Orcan prince.
Oh, interesting.
You know, she fell in love with a male, and she had some kind of magical procedure to change her gender. So the
Interesting.
the bastard is a more literal title than you think. She is an albino, which is relatively unusual, but yeah, she is a transgender orc.
Wouldn't have known that from this.
I know.
Yeah.
It's not at all apparent. But the Rat Queens basically do a decent job holding their own, even though they are completely outmanned, outgunned, and just have little hope of doing anything here other than surviving. And was it the lady orc in charge decides to throw another boulder straight through the wall, and behind that hole that she created somehow is the four Daves.
Yeah.
I guess it just took them a little longer to rally together. And their leader just says, "Somebody call the four Daves." Nope. Shut the fuck up, Gary.
Gary.
And I mean, the end of the issue, even the last panel for them is great. "Ready to die honorably, Daves? By your command, Dave." These guys are way too excitable. And the battle scene from there starts to go in their favor, but even then, it is still like a bad D&D game. I mean, the Dave's little conjurer there, he conjures up the image of a naked orc or a naked troll girl. Whoa,
Yeah.
Floating naked lady. Hey, that
And
doesn't
it
even
stops
make sense.
everybody.
Yeah. All they do is stare at it, and just their leader stabs two of them and just gets them every time.
Oh yeah, it doesn't have to be impressive. This has to say, what the hell is that?
Pretty much.
I swear someone was playing D&D, had some of these things actually happen, and an NPC named Gary, and they jotted these down and put them into this. These are things that would actually happen in D&D groups I've been a part of, and it made me really, really miss my D&D groups.
It seriously would
So
not
bad.
surprise me if this story is born out of Rock Upchurch, decades of playing the game, and he just has notebooks of all the weirdest things that have happened.
I bet.
But I mean, in this particular volume, I think it's issue 5 of the volume here, is when things got really scary, when Violet has already taken a couple stab wounds, saved Hannah from getting impaled when her magic staff ran out, and then took an arrow through the neck.
Yeah, that was
Back to
completely
front,
sudden.
It came out of nowhere. I mean, just reading it down the panel was... It's like we said, there were real consequences here and terror, because they live a lifestyle that's very dangerous, and both Weeb and Upchurch made it very apparent any one of them could die in a moment's notice.
Mm-hmm.
But, while Dee was trying to keep Violet from asphyxiating, was when Hannah went through something of a freak out. Because Violet was, gored right in front of her, her eyes flashed white, then suddenly shifted to black. And she started to whip out spells like no one's business. Number one, I don't know where she got the second wand from. But I will admit, I have never seen a character use a wand as an impaling weapon, let alone in the scrotum of anything before. And then after she impaled him, she fired a lightning bolt out the other side.
Yeah, that was interesting.
And I was awestruck by the next few scenes. This seems like some Game of Thrones level stuff.
It's like something inside of her snapped and she went completely Dark Willow.
Yeah. And before we get to the end, would you like to know where her hidden power comes from?
Okay.
She's not just a half-elf.
Okay.
She has demonic parentage. Her hair buns
Yep,
are hiding
there it
broken
is.
horns.
Oh, that's why the black eyes.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah, that's why she has kind of unknown resources of power. It's not something she enjoys doing, but it's what she has.
Interesting.
So, they pretty much... they didn't really turn the tide of battle until Hannah was one-on-one with that gigantic troll woman.
Yeah.
And she...
And it
yeah.
was totally wrecked.
Yeah, in one force field, she deflected the blow of this lady's spiked club, and then repeatedly reflected it back into her face. Repeatedly, until there was nothing but meat where a head should have been.
It was mush.
She had her Hulk up moment, for sure.
Again, I love Hannah.
Yeah.
I want her on my side, though.
Violet barely survived thanks to healing spells. Braga and the leader of the Daves were talking next to the wall. You know, you're sexy when you're killing shit, Dave. I think you take the sexy killing cake, Braga. Damn. You know, and Hannah... What?
Well, I was just wondering, was that foreplay or was the battle?
Oh, no, that was foreplay.
I know, but was the battle foreplay or was that what they were saying? I mean,
I
for
think
them...
I think it was what they were saying. I don't think sex really comes into it during the fight for either of them. But I think now that they've survived, it's more like I better screw something before I die.
Bloodthirsty mercs. You never know.
Yeah.
Live in the moment.
You know, but between them, or Hannah walks between them. Braga says, "Nice work on the troll," and Hannah's line is almost as uplifting as it is demeaning. You know, she had it coming.
Yes.
No one calls my friends cunts but me. You know, and after Violet recuperates enough to be able to get out of bed, she says, "First, I want you to drop the thing with Bernadette. If Betty says it's handled, then we trust and respect her. Second, we are hosting a party tonight. I want to get drunk. I want to get high. I want to have sex with Orc Dave. They can happen in any order or all at once."
And the blush.
Dude, I'm more impressed that she just stated completely what she wanted all in one sentence.
Probably something she's never been able to do before, but you have a brush with death like that, your priorities are reshuffled, I suppose.
Yeah, I mean, Violet seems like the character that prefers to talk to people with a sword rather than words.
True.
You know, poor Dee is curled up in her chair in the party, refusing to come out from behind her book.
Yeah, I get it, though.
Yeah. Hannah's mixing up a magical drug in a hookah. You know,
The lady asked her, is it safe? No.
I know, the poor woman looks so adventurous when she takes it. Is it safe? Fuck no.
Hit.
And poor Betty. Poor Betty's mixing drinks. Candy apple martinis, ladies and gentlemen. Booze and candy. 2 out of 3 of my favorite things in life poured in a glass. I'd mix in the third thing yet, but I haven't figured out how to make an orgasm an ingredient. Y'all know what I'm talking about. These women are just on the far edge of hedonistic.
In a way, yeah.
Yeah.
When they're not killing things.
Yeah, at least Freya showed up. She's willing to give it another shot, it looks like.
Mm-hmm.
But Violet and Dave, you know, Violet sitting in Dave's lap kissing him. All right, you're mine for tonight. Sorry for not taking no for an answer. Should I get rid of the birds? Did I say anything about the birds? Shut up and let's go.
Yeah, no, she's always the take charge character.
Yeah. Yeah, and it turns out the mayor is behind the whole conspiracy to kill the Rat Queens because he is way into the Chaos Squid that Dee's family worships.
Dun dun.
I still think that the whole killing them was just still Bernadette's idea. It's just,
Yeah. Oh, actually,
he doesn't want the fallback.
yeah, he wants the Chaos, actually. He's not after the Queens. That was just kind of collateral. He actually wants the town sheriff, Sawyer, because he thinks that Sawyer killed his wife,
Mm-hmm.
which is just freaky. And that is the end of Volume 1. And, you know, I'm more curious because I know Jesse's read this before and he's a relative fan of the series. Joanna,
Oh, yeah.
I want to know what you think of this series.
I think it was pretty great. I want to read the rest of it. I'm probably going to go get the next volume from my local comic shop.
Nice.
I want to know the rest of it because, like I said, I can see my friends and I coming up with this story in our D&D groups easily. Given the groups, the makeup of the group that, I have been in and am in currently, yeah, this is great. And it might actually give me some ideas because I have a Minotaur Bard that I'm making. So,
Cowbell?
Shut up.
no, he plays an electric guitar that is actually a battle axe. So, no.
Wow.
Elite Torn Chieftain, then. Okay.
Yeah, okay.
Guess so.
Well, I mean, yeah, I do think the art in this series, despite Upchurch's backgrounds, the art is very well fitting.
Yes.
There have been a couple of artists subsequently who I don't think kind of capture the tone of the book and the characters as well. And I know that's a sad thing to say. I'm not saying Upchurch should get his job back because he's apparently done some bad things with his life. I just hope they find another artist who as well matches the tone that Weeb has set. And Weeb has crafted something really incredible here. Because I'm like Joanna. Every time I go back to this series, as soon as I'm done reading it, I'm like, I gotta find a D&D group and do things that are this crazy.
Yep.
Surprisingly, our old podcast is not the first I heard of this series. First time I heard it is actually watching Critical Role with two of the members mentioning how much they loved it.
That makes a lot of sense.
But I guess overall, since we come to the end, Joanna, you want to start with a final number score and a summation here?
Sure. Summation being, I like the artwork. I like that they capture these complex emotions. Their facial expressions were great.
Mm-hmm.
You see the mischievous look in the faces. You see the rage. You see the surprise. You definitely see the gore. And I love the storyline. I like the writing. I like the one-liners were really great. I'm sitting there laughing, and then I'm like, oh, that just happened. And then laughing again. And I'm sitting there next to my husband. He's like, what are you reading? I'm like, oh, you've got to read this. This is great. Because he's in the D&D group, too.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, this is great. And so he's probably going to pick it up, too.
Nice.
I would actually rank this a 10. And I know that I
Wow.
didn't give those out.
Wow.
I know, right?
You've never given one out.
Never. This is the first.
Oh my god.
Right.
Dude. Wow, and she's a Power Rangers fan who didn't even rate Power Rangers at a 10. I'm kind of thrown sideways here. It's like she stabbed me in the balls with a wand. But, Jesse, what have you got here?
Well, I was apprehensive the first time I read it, and the second time reading through again was like a joy. Because I love the dialogue was so fantastic. I'm always a bit apprehensive with some of the art content because the gore was not as gory as I've seen in other forms.
Mm-hmm.
But definitely, if someone who's played D&D or tabletop games, this is a must read because it's got just enough seriousness with all the silliness of a D&D game.
Okay. What would your rating be?
9?
Nice. Okay. Yeah, I mean, as I said at the outset, I'm a fan of this series, and I enjoy it on a lot of different levels. I love the comedy in it, I love the action in it, and the amount of gore in it, while it is surprising, they sprinkle just enough of it so it's still surprising. It never really becomes a point where you're going to get gallons of blood per minute or anything ridiculous like that. But the art is good. It really matches up with the tone that's set here. And I love the fact that all four of the main characters, 5 if you count Braga down the road, despite the fact that they are constantly overmatched, these are very fearless characters. They march straight into the mouth of the dragon, and instead of saying, will we survive this, it's more like, do we feel like brushing his teeth on the way out?
Yeah, that's something that they would say.
Yeah. All the individual characters They don't overlap at all. They are very, very different individuals, so it's really easy to tell their dialogue apart. Even their supporting cast is wonderful. They are just a bunch of very unique outcasts. And, you could read this either as a comedy or as an adventure, and every time I read this volume, I keep thinking, I want to play a Rat Queen's RPG. I want to watch a Rat Queen TV show. I would love the crap out of a Rat Queen series of movies. If you told me that somebody bought the rights to this to make something live action, I would be right there, without question. I would have to rate this a 9. It is a near perfect thing for me, but I was just thinking in context of it's just a little too violent and flippant for people who are under the age of, I don't know, like 15, 16.
Yeah.
This is not a kid's,
for sure.
This is not a kids-friendly series, so I can't share it with everybody, but that is like my only caveat. I love everything else about this book and these characters.
Honestly, if you want a series that is taken easy to do it on, is Spike still a thing?
Spike is not a thing. That is now the Paramount Network. But
oh, okay, then that's not happening there.
Yeah, but considering Netflix shows don't have the same rating scale, this could go very much on something like that.
Yeah, as a Netflix is probably like the only place this can work.
Probably. True. That, or this would be a very... Could you imagine if HBO picked this up as a replacement for Game of Thrones? People tuning into this.
Man.
It's like, okay, this feels different.
Yes.
But keeping the humor.
They would have to. They would absolutely have to.
I'd watch that.
All right. Well, next week was what we agreed to with Casey. He wants to read the first volume of Preacher by Garth Ennis. And I'm hip to that. I have read it before, but I wouldn't mind going back over it and just trying to see if there's anything I missed before. So that's what we're doing next week. Hopefully he remembers to show up. Thank you very much for tuning in. And we will make sure that everything in the fridge has the proper expired by date by the time we're done. Have a great week. Enjoy the holiday. I am Jeremy.
I'm Joanna.
Yes.
Take care, everybody.